Welcome to the Great Loop Radio podcast, brought to you by America's Great Loop Cruisers Association. We're dedicated to sharing Great Loop information and inspiration with those actively cruising, planning for, or dreaming about a Great Loop adventure. I'm Kim Russo. I'm the director of AGLCA. Today, we're continuing our Story of Our Loop series. It's a popular series where we bring in some of our gold loopers, which is anyone who's completed the entire Great Loop route, and they tell us about their Great Loop adventure. So today we'll talk to Gary and Lisa from PerfectSeas. Before I bring them in, I do want to take a moment to recognize and thank our Admiral sponsors who support AGLCA at the highest level. They are Great Loop Yacht Sales, Passage Maker Trawler Fest, Skipper Bob Publications, and Waterway Guide Media. As always, we encourage our listeners and viewers to support these businesses that support the Great Loop. And now, officially, I'd like to welcome Gary and Lisa from PerfectSeas. Gary and Lisa, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Kim.
We can see that you're aboard your beautiful boat, but before we get some details about her, tell us why you decided to do the loop.
Well, we sold our house on a whim in northern Michigan, and we were going to build, and it was during COVID, and you couldn't build, so we bought the boat and realized northern Michigan was cold, and we left. We got our loop books in Kentucky.
So you left Michigan not really intending necessarily to do the Great Loop. Is that true?
Kind of, yeah. We sort of heard about it and knew a little bit about it, but really hadn't researched it or anything like that. So we just faked it till we made
it. So obviously you mentioned you started during COVID. So over what period of time did you do the loop? How long did it take you?
We left in 2021, in the summer of 2021, fall, and got back to Sheboygan, Michigan last fall, and then put it in storage, and then back to Traverse City this spring. So over probably 2 years, really, of cruising.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how you stretched it out into 2 years, because we get a lot of questions about that. You know, the seasonality kind of lends itself to 1 year, but we've got more and more people who feel like that's not enough time. So tell us a little bit about kind of how geographically you stretched it into the 2 year period.
We left here. Well, we bought the boat down by Lake St. Clair and Lake Huron in July, and then brought it up to Traverse City to do some provisioning and some work, which was a futile thing because there wasn't any provisioning and there wasn't anybody doing any work up here. So we did the best we could. We didn't even have a dinghy on board. So we got going and went across to Wisconsin and down into Chicago. We did that side of the lake because we had been living here for many years. And once we got into Chicago, we got hit by some weather. And then we ended up down in Mobile, Alabama, which was a fascinating part of the trip. All that river scene that was new, that was very much new to us, because we're Great Lakes boaters for many years. And then went across and got into Fort Myer and spent 6 weeks there roughly. And then decided that we wanted to go to the Bahamas. So when we stretched it out, going down around the Keys, when we stopped in Marathon for a month, so we burned 2 or 3 months there, and then we went over to the Bahamas in March. So by the time we got back to Key Largo, it was late April, May, something like, I can't recall the exact dates, but it was a little too late to start going north because we wanted to not get up here in the freezing part of the summer.
Right.
So we put the boat up in Fort Pierce for the winter hurricane season as of October 31st. I'm sorry, it was summer. It was June 1st. We had to put it up that year. Right. And then laid it up there and then went back and got it in October and continued from there. So that was a good thing for us because we were able to come back and visit some family, and then we went to Puerto Rico and hung out with some family there, and then we got back on the boat, which we had missed quite a bit from being on land.
So when you got back on the boat, then
also,
I'm sorry, say that again, Lisa. I missed that.
We went back to the Bahamas. Bahamas also before coming back north again.
Okay, so you basically put it on the hard during hurricane season, came back in late October, November. Where did you cruise that winter? Is that when you went back to the Bahamas for the second time?
Yes, we went back, and our intention was to go to the Abacos,
Mhm.
but we just didn't catch a weather window, so we ended up in where was that? Ocean Reef,
Yeah, Grand Bahama.
Grand Bahama for a couple of months with a bunch of other cruisers, and then headed north up through the city, New York City, and then back into Michigan. We got back up in here in October,
Yeah,
September, late September, first part of October.
gotcha.
Which we
So
had to put away. Then we had to put it away again because it's snowing up here then.
exactly. But yeah, so that is one great strategy to kind of extend the cruising. Put it up on the hard in Florida for hurricane season, and then spend that second time, winter and spring in the Bahamas. So I love that you got to visit the Bahamas twice. That's still on our list. We haven't gotten there yet.
Well,
But
the interesting thing is that when we went back to the boat, it was right about the time that Ian was hitting Fort Myer.
Mhm.
So we went over there and did a little rescue work for some family, and then we got over to Fort Pierce, provisioned our boat, put it all back up, put everything together, getting ready to go, and then they had a hurricane on November 8th, something like that.
Yeah.
Nicole, we had to completely strip everything down and learn how to do hurricane ties, how to tie a boat up. So that was quite an experience too. I wouldn't want to do that again. So it's kind of kept us away from the Atlantic side anyway.
Yeah, kind of the reason everybody tries to leave Florida in the summer, but
See that.
yeah. So tell us about PerfectSeas. We can see you're aboard. It looks like she's an aft cabin.
Yes, we have a 1988 4207 Carver.
Mm-hmm. And give us some of her specs. What kind of, how many staterooms, how many heads, what kind of engines, those types of things.
Yeah, it's a house and two cars, basically. We have it's 46.5 feet long. It's an aft cabin with a full suite in the back with a bathroom, and then we have I'll call a short suite in the front that has its other bathroom, so that's 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a big salon. We have twin 3208 375 horsepower diesels, which can be accessed through the stairway, so we can actually walk down and kind of have a half stand-up engine room, which is easy for maintenance, which was required. And then Lisa went through and fashioned a lot of changes on the boat along the way, because she was mechanically in good shape, but she didn't have good amenities in the kitchen. So what did you do?
So we had a princess stove that kind of dropped down with 3 burners, and you could get 1 pan on it, and so we pulled out we pulled out the twin sinks and put in an induction stovetop, and then a convection microwave, new sink, a big rectangle square sink that was useful, and new refrigerator, did some backsplash, new countertops, things like that. Just kind of took it out of the 80s and brought it a little bit more modern. And we like this boat because we've been on a lot of boats, but there's a lot of room. It's very comfortable for living.
Mm-hmm.
So the most of this was done in Fort Pierce before we were laying the boat up, and we also had engine work done there. We had our 2,000-hour engine work done. So mechanically, we've tried to keep the boat up in the best shape possible. And it gets beat up, the locks and the rivers and the stuff, when you're not used to floating in that stuff. We've had some scratches and dings and stuff like that caused us to have some repairs done, or wanted to have the repairs done. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
spinning around in locks and hitting the walls and doing stuff like that because we're just boaters.
Yep. When you're using the boat, you get those little scratches and dings, and we've got a lot of them too. We're gonna probably work on repairing all of those when we're done with extended cruising. Right now, we know we'll be getting more.
Yeah,
What was
I
that,
like
Lisa?
memories.
Yeah, you're right. So, do you have lower helm and the Flybridge?
Yeah, we have the Flybridge, which is the primary. It's fully enclosed with ice and glass and screens. That was especially important when we got through Georgia and the black flies came after us. If you remember that,
Green flies.
or those green flies. But we don't use the lower helm. It's just not a good spot. I think this boat was mostly designed for a little bit of dock sitting, So being a freshwater boat, it didn't see a lot of swells, and so it's got radar, and we use navionics. We bought a pad and an Apple 13 pad, and we hooked all that up and managed to get an AIS on board, which was a lifesaver after we figured out that those tows were around the corner. And so we refitted most of the components on the boat to meet our needs as we went along.
Right.
And so there were many marinas that learned that we had a visa, and we were able to leave our visa number there, especially Turtle, where we finally got a motor for our dinghy. So we got the dinghy, but we couldn't get a motor, so we had one shipped there. And
wow.
So we didn't actually have a dinghy until we got there. So now we have a high field dinghy, and some stuff that we really didn't think we needed, and stuff that we wish we would have had. I guess big fenders was the big deal. We bought some brists. We ran into Michael J. Fox, his boat, and he had these fenders on it. We're not friends or anything, but I snuck up there and checked on the brand, and they had these big 36-inch round fenders, and they worked tremendously to keep us off the wall, because the top of the boat is a little bit wider than the hull on this particular model.
We learned that in the locks.
Yeah.
That would do it. Yeah, if the top's a little bit wider, that the locks are where you're going to find out.
Yeah, so we're bumping the locks, and they looked a little bit overkill for the boat, but it really kind of saved us in many situations.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so we've got Bluetooth and television and stuff that we didn't really use a lot, but pretty much you find out when you're on a boat that long how much stuff you need to replace, and it's pretty much everything over a couple of years.
But it also sounds like you both did a good job of improvising along the way until you could get the work done or get what you needed. So kudos for that, because I think some people get so wrapped up in trying to have the boat perfect before they leave that it really delays the start, and there's going to be some things you don't know you want or need until you've used that boat for a while. Right. So
the other loopers were very instrumental in helping us make some of those decisions. We had problems with our windlass, and we had problems with, you just have problems with things, and you kind of freak out and think, oh no, what am I going to do now? How is this going to work? And the other boaters during docktails and that sort of thing say, hey, this is what we did, and let us help you. Let us take a look, which is not a real big man thing. I want to do this myself. And so we were kind of forced and privileged and blessed to have other people get on board and really help us to begin with, making some decisions on what was right and what was wrong and how to fix this without having to go through any aggravated expenses.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about the looper community for sure. So tell us about your cruising preferences. And what I mean by that is, marinas versus anchorages. How many miles per day did you do? What's your typical cruising speed? Kind of the numbers, if you will.
Well, I think that really varies, and it varied. We couldn't anchor for a lot of it because our windlass wasn't working and we didn't have a dinghy and all those types of things. But we did realize we're 5 hour a day cruisers. After about 5 hours, it's like, okay, we're done. So we probably averaged 50 miles a day. It depended on where we were going. I think the river system limits you with how many days or how many hours you can go, and
Right.
with the daylight and with the locks. We did some 10, 12-hour days. We did a day crossing across the Gulf. So that was like 8 hours, I think. We have turbos, and every so often you have to run them up to just burn off that fuel. And we realized usually we'd go about 10 miles an hour, and we'd have to run them up probably every 3 hours. And once you did that, you're like, huh, we can get there a lot quicker. And so sometimes we would just keep it up rather than go back down. We can be there at 3 and relax, and instead of worrying about, the daylight, things like that. Depending on where we stayed, where it was, we stayed in Chicago longer than we expected because of weather. A lot of the longer stays were weather related. But down in Florida, like we said, we stayed in Fort Myers longer, and in the Keys a while, in the Bahamas a while. New York, we stayed for a while. Chesapeake, we stayed for a while. So those, it was all variable. But, our name of the boat is PerfectSeas, and we realized that's what we like, our PerfectSeas. So if, winds were over 15 miles an hour, we stayed put typically, unless it was like the river and, it wasn't so important. The, waves were always a consideration. So we like marinas because one of our favorite things was getting to know people and hearing their stories.
Mhm.
We like anchoring because of the beauty and the solitude. So it was kind of a mix. I would probably do more anchoring next time, but I certainly don't feel bad for marinas because I got to meet so many great people.
There were some crazy places in the river system that we went back in those coves and hung a line back in there. It's pretty spooky when it's that dark and you're that alone and you hear rustling and you're wondering if the Loch Ness monster is really there. I don't know if you guys did that. We had a motor buddy, Treadwater, and we were with them a long way, and no worries. So we were kind of a threesome for a while, and then we'd break up. And he was a fearless guy. He would take his 48 Sea Ray back into some of the darndest places, and then say, "Come on back," And, we're used to clean water up here in the Great Lakes,
Mm-hmm.
And alligators and swamp and stuff like that. Just kind of, I don't know. I'm a pretty male, pretty A-type male, but I felt pretty uncomfortable a few times. Lisa thought it was beautiful because, she was on the cruise ship. I was pulling the anchors and, looking for the stuff at the end of the anchor. But the Atlantic side, we were a little bit more rushed on that side for some reasons. So, we went to places like Atlantic City, which we probably wouldn't have done again. We would have just skipped that and went straight up to the bay. Stuff was falling off the boat back here. I don't think we anchored as much as we wanted to, but that was almost kind of the plan. We're more comfort boaters.
Yeah, makes total sense. Let's take a quick break and play a message from a sponsor. We've been kind of talking about almost like factual specific stuff. I want to kind of shift when we come back to more of, what it was really like, what was the experience like? So let's take that break and we'll come back in a moment. Cutterman Marine Services is a vessel relocation and delivery service owned and operated by retired and former members of the U.S. Coast Guard. They have crews ready to exceed your expectations wherever your vessel is located. In addition to relocation and delivery services, they offer a host of other marine services such as new owner training. Check out their website at www.cuttermanllc.com or call 855-65-BOATS. You have a lot invested in your boat. Why would you trust it to someone other than the Cutterman? Cutterman Marine Services. Professional, knowledgeable, capable, experienced. Stay with Eldine Shipyard on your Great Loop cruise or when leaving your boat north for the winter. Eldine Shipyard is a family-owned and operated first-class marina and boatyard, and we've been serving Lake Michigan boaters for more than 100 years. Whether it's time to relax at our pool and hot tubs or be hauled out with our 35 or 70-ton travel lifts for repairs or winter storage, Eldine Shipyard is a one-stop location for everything a looper might need. We're in southwestern Michigan, 5 miles west of Holland, where Lake Macatawa joins southern Lake Michigan. For those flying in and out, the Grand Rapids International Airport is less than an hour away. We're back on the Great Loop Radio podcast. Today we're doing one of our Story of Our Loop sessions, and we have Gary and Lisa from PerfectSeas filling us in on their Great Loop adventure. So one of the things, and I think this was Gary, but in your pre-interview, one of the things you said was that you didn't expect to be challenged emotionally, physically, mentally, and spiritually as much as you were. So tell us about those things. What were things that challenged you?
Yeah, I think maybe I was a little bit more reluctant to do it than Lisa, because my mechanical background was shaky. You know, I'm not used to working on diesel engines. You know, I'm aware of my background allows me to understand inspections and that sort of thing. So the mechanical part of it was a little bit difficult for me. I mean, every day, because of my background, I was in the engine room checking the oil and, you know, checking everything in the boat. So it kind of got like shoveling snow in northern Michigan in the winter. You know, it got old after a while, right? And then when you couldn't get a part and you had to wait for somebody in Massachusetts to send you a part, and you couldn't catch up to the part, or you couldn't catch, you know, your staff must have sent us the loop books to several different marinas. It just kept hopping, you know. We kept so that was a little mentally difficult for me. Physically, I guess being on the land for a long period of time, and then being on a boat and rolling back and forth, and you know, being in our 60s, that my body didn't adapt to it real well. My knees weren't very happy for quite a while, and so, you know, kind of getting through that, I fell off the dock in Fort Pierce. I tripped over a water hose and fell in the water, you know, and you kind of feel like, wow, you know, here we go. I guess everybody falls in the water. So those are things that you just kind of have to deal with. So emotionally, it all played together. You know, oh no, we're going to do this again. Can't we stop? Can't we get off? You know, oh, that's another $5,000. I guess that was part of the emotion. Part of the emotional part of it for me is that, you know, we started with fuel at $2.99 and ended up with fuel at $8. You know, in the Bahamas, and painful. This boat is a mile per gallon boat.
Ours is too.
And if you run her up on plane, it's double that. So, you know, we spent $38,000 on fuel in our trip. And that didn't, you know, so that didn't include all the mechanical stuff that I wasn't able to do. What I guess found most spiritually is you know, we've been believers all of our lives, and there were just many times that you had to do so much soul searching to be in the same place with the same person for the same period of time, and realize that it's a journey and an experience. So not every day was beautiful. You know, some days were like torment for me. And then there were some days where I got on I'd get on a tow and get a a guy that showed us through a towboat, or they would show us about the community, or they would talk to us about things that happened, would be very enriching.
Mm-hmm.
I started writing short stories about people that I've met on the loop. And that was kind of one of the spiritual things that happened, is I would just meet random people, and then I have this key thing that I say, so what's your story?
Mm-hmm.
And I got some really fascinating stories out of people that I didn't know.
Wow.
And so someday maybe I'll publish those as part of a loop thing, or we met very interesting people, from billionaires to people who had addictions on the bus going to Key West. I've had fascinating conversations with. So I think it was not what I expected. I thought it would be a little easier, but it was challenging all the way around.
Yeah. So let me ask, in the end, now that you've kind of gotten home and digested all that, were the challenges worth it? Was the enrichment and the spiritual growth worth going through the challenges?
Well, we hit the land, and we didn't know how to live on land. Well, that's the problem. The problem is when you don't have a home and you make this huge transition, and you live on the water and you're used to that lifestyle, and then you hit the land. It was a very difficult, and still is a very difficult transition for me. And I'll let Lisa speak for herself. It's like I want to go again, but I'm not sure that I want to. I don't want to. I get the boat's brand new again. Okay, I mean everything props up, so it's probably in good shape to be able to go this time. But no, I didn't expect it. I didn't expect it. We crossed the Atlantic one time, and I had a lot of experiences in the dark crossing the ocean on a private boat. But this was like a daily thing, and we had to stay really together spiritually to be able to manage it, or else we would argue.
Yeah. And Lisa, you said that you kind of you learned what you were capable of. So tell me about that. What was the emotional part of the journey like for you?
Well, so a lot of things. Emotionally, it was great for me because I love meeting new people, things like that. But as far as what I'm capable of, when things go wrong, they never go wrong in the right place. They usually go wrong in the wrong place. Instances, we had a hose blow going over to the Bahamas, and Gary's down in the engine room, and we don't know what's going on. Of course, we're right where, the cell phone doesn't work. There's nobody around the radio. We've got to figure it out. What are we going to do? Those types of things. Okay, we got to do this. Stay calm. Gary takes over the engine room. I take over. He did most of the piloting, but I did some too, and I was fairly comfortable with that part. And so not falling apart when something major happens. We had a shaft come out on Hudson River in 70 foot of water. Okay, what do we do now? Just not panicking, things like that. How do I fix this? How do I deal with this? Okay, things are stressy. How do we, relationship wise, work together with each other? We learned that instead of freaking out about everything, to just take a deep breath, ask, use our faith, but also at the end of the day, instead of, talking about it, then we came up with the rule that when something happened, Gary wasn't allowed to take the helm back until he thought it through several times and was done thinking about it. And
that's because I ended up in the sand one time when I got back to the helm, and I didn't know which way was red, and I drifted over into the sand. So that rule came into place after that occurrence. And thanks somebody in a Ranger tug who waked us to get us off that sand. So that was real nice of them. So shout out to them.
We can do that.
What about the?
So and then debriefing at the end of the day. That was always a good thing, because if you write in the heat of the moment, things are stressy, but if you wait to the end of the day and debrief about what we could have done differently and things like that, that was helpful. We had another instance in a lock. We never, ever, ever cleated going through a lock, and we always used our mid ties. We know our boat, which ones work. And in the North Channel, in the Trent Severn, somebody convinced us to throw a line on the front. And so we're trying to handle that. And all of a sudden that line's really tight. And we were told early on, keep a knife on you. And thank goodness we had a knife, because we were able to cut the line, things like that. So thinking on our feet, thinking of alternative ways to do things. You know, when the hose blew, Gary ended up pouring it through a coffee filter to get it back in, because it was our only choice.
We lost all the antifreeze, so I had to, figure it out there. And
So
she's up on the helm, and I'm down there in the engine room, and I didn't have my headset on because I just couldn't function down there with that on, and she didn't know what was going on, and we managed. The other time, I want to tell you that this is a funny story. We got into the first lock by Joliet, and the wind caught the boat just as we were getting onto the bollard, and it pushed the boat away really very quickly. And so Lisa's on the front, and the boat does a complete 360 in the lock and ends up on the other side of the lock.
Mm-hmm.
Right against the wall. Just kind of was planned, but to watch her face while I was thinking about what I was going to do, pretty precious, because she was like, I don't know, what are we doing now? What's your plan?
but I think we're a lot more capable than we, than we thought we were. Gary wasn't mechanical. He hired cat mechanics, watched what they did, learned what they did. We took lessons from other people. It made me realize I can do anything.
Yeah.
Given the situation, I can do anything. I'm a lot stronger than I think. And physically, mentally, spiritually. It wasn't easy all the time, but I'm glad, because I became a different person, I think, from going
I
through.
love that. I love that. And I always say, if the loop wasn't challenging, it wouldn't be an accomplishment to finish it. I mean, it really is a sense of accomplishment. So as we kind of look to wrap up, as we're kind of running out of time, I'd love for each of you to kind of give your best advice to somebody who's still in the planning stages and listening to this and thinking, gosh, there's challenges that maybe I hadn't considered. What is your advice to them?
My advice is just go for it. You can't plan for everything, but if you think of it as an adventure, not a vacation, it's like having a kid. You don't have to have everything in place before you do it. We knew nothing when we started. We were as unprepared as you could probably be, and we made it through. Always find a friend who's got a deeper draft than you do to go in front of you to be your director.
Good advice.
And that was great. Be ready for some great friendships that you'll treasure forever. We became good friends with people that I feel closer to than people I've known forever. Have fun, enjoy it, let things go, take it a day at a time. But by all means, do it. That's my advice.
Pick your role. Pick your role on the boat. Are you the mechanic? Are you the navigator? What is your part? And trust your partner.
Yeah.
Lisa was a tremendous navigator. She's always kind of been that way on the water. I mean, she can't find her way across the street in the city, honestly, but she's just awesome on the water. We sat together on the helm the whole time when we were traveling so that we didn't make any mistakes, because there's a lot of intersections that you're not familiar with. And the thing about the intersections is that somebody ought to know what to do. And Lisa was the one that did that. So I spent all the time doing the mechanical stuff and going through that arduous task. And she did a lot of time working with charts and other boaters. And then we would review those charts. But don't leave in the fog. That would be my biggest recommendation. Even if everybody else leaves in the fog, stay at the dock.
Great advice. And thank you both. This has been really, I think, enlightening for a lot of people. And thank you for sharing your journey with us. It's been a pleasure. Appreciate your time and your knowledge.
Thanks for choosing us. Yeah.
And I got to say, kudos to you for all the support that you give to everybody. You always answered my calls, or somebody in the office always answered my calls, and have been encouraging and wonderful. And you do a great job. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And it's definitely a team effort. So I will share that with the rest of the team and they will appreciate
great.
that. Thanks. Hope to see you again soon. And to everybody who's watched or listened this week, we appreciate you. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Great Loop Radio podcast. Until then, safe cruising.